AT&T has a very big stick. Now, some of these areas in North Auburn that we wanted to serve, they didn't particularly want to serve them, but they didn't want Opelika to serve them either, and we were willing and able to do that.
Welcome to episode 389 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. The last time Mayor Gary Fuller from Opelika, Alabama was on the podcast was 2013. He came on to talk about his city's exciting new designation as the state's first gigabit community. A lot has happened since then. They deployed to the entire city and sought to expand to nearby Auburn, but Alabama's state restrictions prevented them from serving the city just a few miles away. After multiple attempts to change the state law, all thwarted by dozens of lobbyists from incumbent AT&T, community leaders in Opelika realized that the best option was to privatize the network, which they did in 2018. Mayor Fuller is back on the show this week, and though you don't hear them in the interview, he's accompanied by Derek Lee, Director of Opelika Power Services, and Joey Motley, City Administrator. The mayor who spearheaded the project and led the community shares the Opelika story. He describes why the town decided they needed to bring some internet access competition to town, the challenges they faced, and the details behind the sale. For more on Opelika's story, go back to podcast episode 40 from April of 2013 and check out our coverage on muninetworks.org. Now here's Christopher talking with Mayor Gary Fuller from Opelika, Alabama.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance up in a rather chilly Minneapolis this morning, and I'm speaking with Mayor Fuller from Opelika, Alabama. Welcome back to the show, Mayor Fuller.
Hey, great to be with you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think you were on 7 years ago when you were working on this project. You came on with the folks that were advising you on it, and we had a wonderful discussion. And now I'm looking to close the loop and learn about everything that's happened in between. But why don't we start by just, if for folks who haven't been to Opelika, aren't familiar with it, I guess I should note that we're about to be rivals. And I think when this show airs, we will learn whether Auburn beat Minnesota or if Minnesota pulls the upset in the New Year's Day bowl game. But as I recall, you're an Alabama fan anyway, so probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I am an Alabama fan, but let me tell you what, I'll be pulling for Auburn when they play Minnesota. And the Golden Gophers are not accustomed to SEC-style football, and Auburn's pretty good. Obviously, they beat Alabama, and so we expect it to be a great game between two great schools with Minnesota and with Auburn University.
That's right. And as people are listening now, they'll know that hopefully it was a good game and not a blowout. But tell us a little bit more. So Opelika is right next to Auburn, but for people who aren't aware, how big is it? What sort of stuff do y'all do down there?
There are two major cities in Lee County. Opelika and Auburn comprise a metropolitan statistical reporting area, metro, and there's about 165,000 in the metro. City of Opelika has, we think the new census will show us a little over 30,000. City of Auburn has about 60,000. Then they have 25,000 students at Auburn University. And some of those are counted in the census and some are not. We are next door to each other. Our western city limits and Auburn's eastern city limits touch. We do compete with one another in sports, high school sports in particular. But the two communities are really joined at the hip. We have folks that live in Opelika that work in Auburn and vice versa. Folks that live in Auburn that shop in Opelika and vice versa. But Auburn University is the largest employer in Lee County. And then the second largest employer is East Alabama Medical Center, which is located in Opelika. Opelika is the county seat of Lee County. We're located in east central Alabama. We're about 30 minutes from Columbus, Georgia, and Fort Benning. We're an hour and 15 minutes from Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport. We're less than an hour to the state capital in Montgomery. So that's where we're located, and our geographics. Opelika is a town that is known as an old railroad town because back in the old days, there were two railroad lines. We still have two railroad lines. one that runs east-west, the other that runs north-south, and they intersect in Opelika. And back in the days of cotton and that type of agriculture, Opelika was really a bustling community because of the railroad. And we still have the railroad, but we've advanced since then. And of course, a lot of our goods and services now are transported by interstate highway, which I-85 runs through Opelika, and we have 5 exits to Interstate 85.
In 2012, then you, to fast forward from the railroads to the modern commerce, you built the citywide fiber network, which at the time you're the first gigabit city in Alabama. So tell me a little bit more about why you got into that business through your municipal electric utility.
And it's important, Chris, for folks to understand that the citizens of Opelika have owned Opelika Power for over 100 years. And that has been a wonderful thing, not only for our citizens, but for business and for commerce to have public power. And those rates are substantially less than the investor-owned utilities. But we had one internet cable TV provider at that time in Opelika, and that was Charter, which is now known as Spectrum. They had then the absolute worst customer service in America. And I called them out on this a number of times. Apparently they were not very embarrassed because they didn't do anything about it to make it better. We tried to recruit someone to come in and compete with Charter. City of Auburn had the same issue that Opelika had. They had one provider, and that being Charter. Predatory pricing. If you lived in Montgomery or Columbus, Georgia, which both had Charter, but they also had other providers, the rates were substantially lower than they were in Opelika and in Auburn. So the first thing we wanted to do was to create competition for Charter. Then the other thing that we wanted to do was to be able to fully deploy our smart grid and be able to have real-time communications with the meters on the side of your house or at your business. So you need fiber in order to do that. And it also is a great help in the event of an outage on being able to restore service to those power customers. So we wanted to do 2 things, create competition for Charter and then to fully deploy smart grid. So we embarked upon this adventure of building a fiber network. For a long time, I thought it was about 400 miles. Derek Lee tells me it's actually about 350 miles. But we wired the entire corporate limits of Opelika without regard to there being 30 households per mile. Didn't matter if they were 10 or 5 or 1. We wired the entire city, and we didn't cherry pick the affluent neighborhoods. We went to all parts of Opelika with fiber. So now prior to doing this, we had a referendum by the city council because the telecom law that was written in Alabama back in 2000 said that someone could petition to have a referendum. So before Charter or anyone else petitioned for a referendum, we petitioned ourselves. In fact, Derek Lee circulated the petition. I was one of the first to sign it. I think we had the required signatures within 24 hours calling for a referendum. And we wanted the people to be involved in making the decision to invest the kind of money that we were going to invest. And of course, the support was overwhelming. Now, we had some naysayers, and we suspect that they were encouraged by Charter or the telecommunications business in Alabama to oppose it, and they opposed it saying no to smart grid, that was a bad thing. We had a public hearing, and folks came and talked, and we had one lady that said, I know why y'all doing this smart meter. You want to look inside my bedroom. But I explained to the woman that meter on the side of her house was going to do the same thing that a meter had always done, and that's to measure her consumption so we can send her a bill. The advantage of a smart meter is for us to have real-time communications with it so that we can turn the meter on or off without having to dispatch personnel to do that. And then in the event of an outage, to be able to get it back on. So the citizens approved it, and then that's when we embarked on building the fiber system. And then we also built a new facility for Opelika Power Services, which included a head-end building. So we did all that at about the same time.
And much of the story will sound familiar to listeners of the show who have heard many cities that have gone through similar things. But what makes you a bit different is how you ended up in that last year technically in 2018, as we're airing this as our first show of 2020. You decided to sell the network to Point Broadband, a private company. So if we'll come back and talk about the intervening years a bit and your experiences, but I'm curious what led you to decide to privatize the fiber optic telecommunications services.
We, from the get-go, knew that we wanted to expand our territory and that we wanted to go beyond the Opelika corporate limits. And in order to do that, the state law that was written back in 2000 said that we could only serve the corporate limits of the city of Opelika. We had people in Auburn right across the street from a home in Opelika that we could have had them hooked up within an hour or so to our network, but we were not allowed to go beyond our city limits. So Senator Tom Watley, we have 30 state senators, brought a bill to the legislature in 2015. We could not get it out of committee. He brought the same bill in 2016. We could not get it out of committee. In 2017, Senator Watley brought a bill, and Representative Joe Lovern in the House, Alabama House, we could not get either one out of committee for a vote on the floor. In 2017, when we thought we had the best chance, AT&T hired, according to reliable sources, they hired 26 lobbyists to work against little old Opelika. And I understand that they invested something around $1 million to make sure that we were not successful. AT&T has a very big stick, and now some of these areas in North Auburn that we wanted to serve, they didn't particularly want to serve them, but they didn't want Opelika to serve them either, and we were willing and able to do that. So after we lost that battle in 2017, we waved the white flag and said, we're not ever going to be able to get out of these handcuffs that we're under that really restricted our ability to expand our territory. So that's when we started looking to try to do something different.
And Mayor Fuller, I just want to jump in because I have a quote I wanted to share from State Senator Tom Watley, who I think it's worth noting is a Republican. A lot of your state, obviously Republican, and so this isn't something. This is partisan. This is really about that power of AT&T. But one of the things that he said in 2017 was, I 100% support private industry to supply these services, but private companies have made business decisions not to serve part of my district. When that happens, I'm not going to tell those areas that they need to accept it. They need to do what they need to do to get serviced. The Opelika Internet Bill would allow that. And so, like you said, he was a real champion for you, and the rest of the legislature decided not to follow his lead on that, unfortunately. So I wanted to record that because we're seeing these fights in a lot of different legislatures. So like you said, you had to go in a different direction. You decided it was not worth pursuing at the legislature. So what did you do next?
We started thinking. Derek was very much involved in this. We had a company approach us, and then we had another company approach us, and the second one was serious about wanting to do something, and then that's when we began the negotiations of talking about how we could conceivably make this work. And it probably took 6 or 7 months, to work this out. We had an investment, of course, in money where we had borrowed some money from Regions Bank, and then we also had loaned ourselves some money. By the way, we kept all of the funds separate between the power company was not subsidizing the telecom project. And so that created some bookkeeping challenges, in order to do that. But we owe ourselves about $8 million. As you probably know, Chris, when Point Broadband purchased us, it was $14.175 in cash. We owe Regions about $13.5 million, which we paid them off. And then, of course, we have an agreement with Point that beginning on the 25th month, that they will begin remitting 3.5% of their gross that's generated from the Opelika head end back to the city of Opelika. And we think over a 10-year period that should come very close, maybe even exceed the $8 million that we still owe ourselves.
Before you decided to sell it, it looked to me, I saw in an article that you had about 3,700 customers, about 5 in. To me, I'm guessing that's probably around 35% market share or close to it, given your population. That's right on path. So it didn't look to me like you were financially struggling in terms of even being limited in your service territory. I'm sure that you were still, it was a headache and you still had to figure out how to keep expanding, but it didn't look to me like you were in trouble.
We felt very good about what we were doing. I tell you one thing that we discovered, and it didn't take very long. In order for us to change our rate, we had to bring that to the Opelika City Council. We don't have a separate power board or anything. Our governing body is the City Council. And if we wanted to change our rate packages, then not only did we have to bring it to the City Council, but we had to notify 30 days in advance, AT&T, Charter, WOW, Dish Network, DirecTV, that this was going to be an agenda item at the Opelika City Council meeting on whatever the date and time, to give them an opportunity to attend and voice whatever they wanted to voice.
To cause trouble.
Oh, yeah. Of course, they don't have to give us 30 days notice if they're going to do something. They just decide today that they're going to make a change, and they do it tomorrow. But we didn't have that flexibility, which was a big handicap. Plus, we couldn't incentivize salespeople very easily, or we couldn't incentivize customers because of how we're structured with the City Council and with local laws. But yes, to answer your question, we were pleased where we were. We wanted, of course, more customers, and all of us promoted it every day about being on OPS 1. And in fact, Joey Motley has OPS 1. I had it. I think most of the City Council had it. A lot of city employees had it because it was great service. And we had the absolute finest customer service that you can imagine because, we're local people. We see these customers at church or at different functions at the ballparks. In fact, I had a friend tell me the other day that the customer service is not quite as good as it was with Point as it was when we had it. But I think Point has excellent customer service. But we were just, we really went above and beyond on serving our customers.
And you have one of my favorite all-time quotes. I still use this in my presentations at times. When I could just cue you, but you would brag that when you called the local folks, they spoke a certain language. And if you want to tell us what language that is, I'd appreciate it.
Our folks spoke Southern, and they were not in India or Bangladesh. They spoke Southern, and so you could communicate. And let me tell you what, we were never going to put you on hold for 20 minutes. You'd have to go through 10 menus to get someone that could help you. And I think folks appreciate that. And I suspect that's true with other providers that are in a similar position that we were in before we sold out, in that they, local customer service and the response rate. And, Chris, if we had a problem and we couldn't help that customer by telephone, then we would not hesitate to roll a truck And sometimes that meant rolling a truck on Saturday morning. Or we had one instance where an older couple liked to watch on Sunday morning through their computer at the time the First Baptist Church worship service, which was streaming video. And they couldn't get it, tried to restore it on Saturday. We rolled a truck on Sunday morning, which required overtime for our technician. But you know what? We were able to replace the box, the ONT, on the side of their house, and they were able to watch that church service that morning. And, of course, they thought we were the greatest thing since sliced bread. Probably took us a few years to recover the cost of doing that, but that was a good example of the customer service.
Yes, I think that's a very good example of the importance of that local customer service and appreciating the priorities they have in their lives. I'm curious if you can tell us anything else. Like if someone was to say to you, or if I was to say to you right now, was it worth? I mean, I am sure that Derek Lee's there in the background, director of Opelika Power Services, Joey Motley, the city administrator. In my experience, these networks do prove worth it, but they take a lot out of people. Nights of stress, difficulty solving unexpected problems. Was all of that worth going through over the years that you did it? Absolutely.
We would do it again. We would. Of course, lessons learned, we would do a number of things differently. But yes, it absolutely was worth it. And it was great for our community. We were Alabama's first gig city, much to the dismay of Huntsville, which
that's right.
I think they have the latest and greatest. And Huntsville's a great community and really a shining star in Alabama when it comes to technology. But we probably beat Huntsville by a year. And they use Google to provide their gig of internet service. We got a lot of publicity out of that, and we had folks that have moved to Opelika, especially those that telecommute from home. They could be anywhere as long as they have reliable internet service, and they moved to Opelika because of the speed of the internet and the reliability of it. So yes, we would do it again. And it's been a good thing for us. It was a great thing when we did it. We did it for the right reasons. We had the right motives. And then, of course, we sold it for the right reasons, in that we were unable to compete because of the restrictions by the legislature and the fact that we were never going to be able to beat AT&T. They're just too big and they just have too much influence. And try as Senator Whatley might and as Representative Lovern might, we were never going to win that fight in the Alabama legislature.
Well, I really appreciate this time. I want to make sure that I give you a chance, and also if Derek or Joey want to add anything to the conversation. But I really appreciate you sharing your experiences.
I hope one day that all people, especially in Alabama and in Lee County, will have access to broadband and reliable service such as our citizens and business enjoy in Opelika. And absolutely, we would do it again differently. And Derek Lee would be a great one if he ever retires from OPS. He can be a great consultant on telling folks how best to do something like this.
Right, having lived through it, it's the best experience you can have.
Chris, we appreciate your interest, and I would encourage other municipalities that are doing this to keep it up. And we've had some naysayers that thought we undersold our product, but we think that we got a fair price for it. And we think that Point Broadband is a great company, and that they will be very successful. And then their success will mean something to us as we recover our investment in this project.
Good. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure I'll check in, and I still hope to make it down there sometime. I want to take my son on a good tour, and since I know good folks in all these places, I want to swing through. So
come down here. We'd love to have you. And listen, we'll love on you and your boy, and he may want to go to school at Auburn or at Alabama. Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. But I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and thank you so much for all the time from all three of you.
Thank you, Chris.
That was Christopher with Mayor Gary Fuller from Opelika, Alabama, about the community's fiber optic network and their decision to privatize it. We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle is @muninetworks. Subscribe to this podcast and the other podcasts from ILSR, Building Local Power, and the Local Energy Rules podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount helps keep us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was episode 389 of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.